Okay, so here's your one run of yours that I have. It's jumpers from Saturday. Oopsies. Good girl. I thought your runs looked pretty good this weekend. I mean, overall. And she's a difficult dog to run because you kind of never really know what dog you're going to have out of the starting line. Although she does definitely speed up like halfway through the course or something like that. Okay, so let's slow it down. So I really liked this turn. It's kind of hard to see because missed the very, very beginning of your run, but this is the stride before she takes off, and you're definitely peeling this way. So I like that. She knows there's a turn coming, and she responds. She actually jumped pretty collected over that. And you get your cross in, and you keep moving. Here, you're kind of barely moving, but she's kind of barely moving too. And you went in pretty deep here, but I think you should, especially on the beginnings of courses, you should plan on running all the way into these jumps, almost like you're going to touch each and every one of these jumps, especially like in a pinwheel situation that's at the beginning of the course, because that's when she's going the slowest. So you were pretty far ahead of her here, and you probably had to decelerate, but I think if you would have just kept going like you were going to actually touch this jump, it might have been a little tiny bit better. But you kind of decelerate and almost stop, and then you're clapping your hands. But it's hard to run a dog like this. Now here, you're so far ahead, Becky. You could have easily done a blind cross. Very, very, very easily. I mean, look how far ahead you are. And now you're coming, you're going to do a rear, but now you're like at the jump, and your dog is still coming. So now you decelerate, you stop, you're actually turning, and you're actually starting to go that way. So, of course, your dog is like, I don't know what you're doing. Do you want me to take this jump or not? So the only advice I can give in this situation is when you're walking a course in the first half of the course, I think you should have plan A and plan B because of how she tends to run. And you know, it also could be if you had gone in really deep here to this part and sort of paced yourself so you were more with her on this part, that you could have gotten a rear in here where you were trying to do one. But my guess is that you still, even if you had gone in deep here, you still could have gotten ahead and done a blind cross between these two. And I would recommend that. I would recommend doing blinds or fronts with this dog and not rear crosses if it's possible. And from what I've seen, it's possible with her for sure during the first third to half of the course. So something for you to think about when you're walking the course. If you're in the beginning third or half, maybe have a plan A and a plan B. Okay, so if you're really far ahead like this, you could just do a blind. And my guess is that when you walked it with a rear. And I think I did a rear there with my dogs, with my faster dogs. But you should probably have a different plan so that if you're that far ahead, so that your brain can, sort of adapt or whatever, if that makes sense, and react to that. Yay, good girl. So you get her over that, and then look, you take off, you race ahead. She's kind of going to the triple, but she comes with you, do a beautiful blind cross. Really, really nice. You could have easily done that in that other location too. So now in the weaves, you start even, and then you race ahead, and now you're getting farther and farther ahead, but now you're like, oh, I don't have anywhere to go, and so now you're stopped. My guess is that this dog sort of does her weaves the same every time. And in this particular course, because I know that you planned it, you know, coming around in here and doing a rear cross here, so you don't really have anywhere to be, right? Because if you're going to do a rear cross, you don't want to be super far ahead of your dog. So, and with her, my guess is she weaves sort of the same speed, like pretty consistently. So where you are right now, see how you're like 1 to 2 pulls ahead of her? I think that that's perfect for her because it helps drive her and motivate her because you're ahead of her. But I wouldn't get farther ahead than that unless you do have somewhere to go and somewhere to be after the pulls. But in this course, you don't. And a little trick is, see how this is the end of the poles right here, and here's the triple, and see the distance between those two? So you can maintain this distance where I have this frozen right now all the way, and you can just keep going until you hit the plane of this triple, right? So you can stay that same distance ahead, so you're just as motivating, so you're not coming to a stop like you did. And you're still staying ahead, but then when you hit the plane of this triple, then you can peel off and send her, okay? Because see, you're going, now you're like 4 pulls ahead, now you're like stopped and waiting. And she completes the pulls and it's fine, but it's never really good for handlers to come to a complete stop unless you're asking for like true collection on something or you're trying to do a contact, okay? Now here, this is kind of hard to see. So she lands, she takes 1 stride, and she lifts off for this jump. So you had a pretty short time to cue this turn, and you cued it a little late. So she lands, right now she's taking that stride, and you're just starting to peel away there. And my guess, it's hard to tell from this angle, but my guess is still that your motion is still really forward, which is fine. And then now she's taking off, and look at your shoulders. You're using those shoulders, and you're clapping. And your dog, look at your dog. She's taking the jump completely in the middle and perpendicular, which means she had no clue that there was well, she didn't know when she took off that there was a turn. Okay? So, what you should have done is on this, you can think about, if it's easier to think about, well, it's hard. It's not an exact rule, right? But when your dog landed off the triple, your motion was still going to kind of come this way before you had to make a turn, and that's fine. But I would have kept my shoulders facing me, facing the camera, okay? And with your arm up, just how you are now with your shoulders and your arm up, but I would have stayed that way all the way until my dog lifted off, okay? Because then she would have known for sure. And then what happens is she lands perfectly straight, and then her path kind of swings out this way, and then she goes around this jump. And she's not the kind of dog to land and really dig in and turn tight, okay? And I don't think that that's a bad thing at all, because dogs like that don't tend to get injured. But you kind of need to be aware of that, because then, so she lands long and straight, and then she kind of takes this big sweeping turn, but now you're so far ahead. And my guess is that your path is actually very, very slightly doing this, and so she just goes around that jump. So this is an example of where you just kind of need to keep your eye on your dog. So, which is easier said than done. But here, if I saw my dog was this wide, you know, if you would have just decelerated or stopped, she would have cut in and been able to take that jump. And you keep going, and I think that's awesome because that was your mistake and not hers. Yay, Jilly. Okay, good job.